Hello, welcome to our Bible study. These are the readings set for Sunday, the 2nd of August. So from Genesis, the Psalms, Romans, and Matthew. And I've kind of focused on the Genesis readings again this week in the Bible study. These Genesis readings talk about Jacob and him struggling with the angel, struggling with God. I will not let you go unless you bless me, says Jacob to God. Well, that's it's quite a prayer, isn't it? It's quite a demand. And I was reflecting on this and looking at that poem that we have by Joseph Stanton on the sheet next to a painting there by Delacroix, and it's called Jacob Wrestling with an Angel. I was particularly touched by this little bit. Goes like this. The calmly poised angel receives in his opened arms all the man has to give, unmoved by earthly urgency, and with a mere touch to the hollow of human thigh, throws muscle out of joint. We know that the angel will refuse the victory. Tell the defenseless man he has prevailed. Endow him with a wondrous name. Make him father to a chosen people. And he also says the hero's wild reach for what he could not even begin to grasp. Jacob becoming Israel as we watch, as we see him struggle. Israel probably meaning he struggles with God. I think it's really important, this reading. It's really, really important that we struggle with God. It may not seem like a very prayerful, holy thing initially to think of struggling with God. Sometimes we think we've got to be so polite with God and put our hands together and close our eyes and say our prayers. This isn't what Jacob is doing here. Jacob is struggling with God, struggling with the angel, the messenger of God, struggling for a blessing. He's the one, remember, who stole the blessing from his father, from his brother. He's the one who was determined to get his brother's birthright, his twin brother's birthright. This man, Jacob, is determined that he will get what he wants, and then he takes on the living God. He's got no chance. He's got no chance. God doesn't destroy Jacob. God who could have destroyed Jacob in a moment. But God says, let me go. And Jacob says, not unless you bless me. And God blesses him. Jacob leaves the encounter wounded and blessed. The reading from the Gospel of Matthew also talks about a blessing. It talks about bread and blessing. Bread feeding a multitude, just like a multitude were fed by manna in the wilderness in the Exodus story. So Jesus is able to break bread and feed a multitude. But he's wounded. Yes, he's wounded before he is wounded on the cross. Because his cousin, John the Baptist, yes, he has been killed. He's been killed by Herod, and Jesus has just heard about it. He went up into the wilderness alone, presumably to grieve, presumably to struggle with his father and say, why, oh God, my father, why has this happened to my cousin John? He comes back out of the wilderness, and there's that crowd again, wanting something. They're so hungry. And Jesus' heart goes out to them, and he gives them bread and blessing. Struggle for that blessing. That's the Bible study message for today. Struggle for the blessing. Fight with these words about Jacob and these words about Jesus, and seek a blessing from God. For God does not disappoint, even though we may be wounded. So bless you this week. I hope you're not too wounded this week. I hope that God does bless you and that you can feel God's strength as Jacob did, as the disciples did, in Jesus' presence. Amen.